Hey everyone, Sky here to discuss Captain America: Civil War, starring Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, Sebastian Stan, Anthony Mackie, Don Cheadle, Jeremy Renner, Chadwick Boseman, Paul Bettany, and Elizabeth Olsen, and directed by Anthony Russo and Joe Russo. And before I get into this review, whose side am I on? Well, you'll find out in the show, but I remember being a little cold on this movie, and I will explain why momentarily. So let's get into it. Well, back when it came out in theaters, I should say. But let's get into this review right now, shall we? We start the movie off in 1991 with the Winter Soldier returned by Sebastian Stan going to a mission to kill a particular someone, which I'll spoil later on the show. But that, as a prologue, was a good way to open the film. We go present day in Lagos, with Captain America returned by Chris Evans, and Black Widow returned by Scarlett Johansson, the Falcon returned by Anthony Mackie, and a barely accent Scarlet Witch returned by Elizabeth Olsen, trying to stop Brock Rumlow, aka Crossbones, returned by Frank Grillo, from stealing a biological weapon, and they have an action chase sequence to Crossbones almost killing Captain America, until Scarlet Witch pulls the exploding crossbones and destroying a building, which injures citizens. And I really like that opening sequence, which will lead to the plot of this movie. Elizabeth Olsen's accent, for some reason, comes and goes. And I'm honestly going to blame the actress because of how she can't pull the same accent as she did in Age of Ultron. I'm going to confess my love for Iron Man right now has gone way down after Age of Ultron, and it's worse here. I hate him here more than ever because he's a complete bastard for listening to Secretary Ross, returned by William Hurt, and knows absolutely nothing about the Winter Soldier being Cap's good friend, Bucky, and he was controlled by Hydra. And later in the film, he'll be very freaking careless. I'm on Team Cap and then Team Iron Man throughout the movie, in my opinion. In the same meeting with Secretary Ross is Cap, Iron Man, Black Widow, the Falcon, Scarlet Witch, War Machine returned by Don Cheadle, and Vision returned by Paul Bettany, who are the two characters I'm going to hate throughout the movie with Iron Man, and one other character I'll get to later. Zemo, played by Daniel Bruhl, is a villain with an arc of how he lost his family from an Avengers event and tears the Avengers against each other, but it was his fault to make Captain America and Iron Man to fight each other, but was a pretty poor villain in this movie, in my opinion. Agent Carter, Peggy Carter, has passed away, and I felt very bad for Cap, and he attends the funeral. And who's also there? Sharon Carter, aka her niece, returned by Emily Van Camp, and I'm happy to see her again in this movie after The Winter Soldier. We go to Vienna, and we meet King T'Chaka, as well as T'Challa, played by Chadwick Boseman, who's an actor I know from playing Jackie Robinson in that 42 movie. And I really like this actor and his accent. But his father dies, and believing Winter Soldier did it when he was in Bucharest. Excuse me for saying that wrong. Just to live his life. He'll at the end realize it wasn't really him, but he'll believe and vengeance throughout the movie. But I really do like the character. He was pretty interesting to know as a character, especially when we get to that Black Panther movie. So we get a three-way chase with Cap, Black Panther, who is T'Challa, and Bucky, until War Machine comes in and says, "You're a criminal," to Cap. And I thought, yeah, I hate you, Rhodey. I really freaking hate you. Just like I hate Vision at this point. And Iron Man, what am I saying? But that chase was pretty cool and a lot of fun. And so we go to Berlin, and we meet Everett Ross, played by Martin Freeman, who I reviewed in Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End. And I have seen him in the Hobbit trilogy. I honestly don't know what to think of the character, but I'll like him better in Black Panther than in this movie. When Bucky goes crazy and almost escapes, and Steve stops him from doing that, which was a fun action scene. We get the scene after the credits in Ant-Man, where Bucky's metal hand is stuck in a mechanical thing, and Bucky explains he wasn't the only Winter Soldier, and it leads to the Falcon saying, "I know a guy," from the after credits scene in Ant-Man. And like I said last week, it works here more than Ant-Man, in my opinion. Now we get introduced to a new version of Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, played by Tom Holland, and so far I don't like this Spider-Man very much, because he's on Team Iron Man, and his character is all set on Iron Man, it feels like, and he sounds too whiny in this movie. And I'll like him better in Spider-Man Homecoming, but he's barely in this movie, and his Aunt May, played by Marissa Tomei, who is a little too young and pretty attractive in this movie, I must say. Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, returned by Jeremy Renner, is back from retirement, and I like him here than in the beginning of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We also get Scott Lang, aka Ant-Man, returned by Paul Rudd again, who is again improving after his solo movie. So the whole Captain America team versus the Iron Man team is a very epic fight between heroes. And I think the worst fighter in the whole fight was Spider-Man, because he talks too much, and I really wish he would shut up the whole time. But I do love when Tony shoots the Falcon after Rhodey is down after the fight, and Scarlet Witch, the Falcon, Hawkeye, and Ant-Man get arrested by Team Iron Man, while Cap and Bucky go after Zemo, and Tony realizes Secretary Ross doesn't want to help Iron Man to help Cap out, so Tony decides to go to a snowy mountain, I forget the name of it off the top of my head, to find Steve and Bucky and go with them, until he finds out Bucky is the one who killed his parents, Tony's parents, and he's careless enough that he won't fight with Cap and Bucky, but against them. And I like the fight between Cap and Winter Soldier versus Iron Man, for how much to think Iron Man lost that fight at the end. I also like that Black Panther learns forgiveness to Bucky and brings Zemo to justice. What a great scene. I gotta tell you that right now, and I'm looking forward to reviewing the next Black Panther movie. I really like the Stan Lee cameo when Tony is called Tony Stank. And I thought that was really funny because I enjoyed the ending where Steve writes a letter to Tony and puts a cell phone in the package to say to Tony if they ever need Captain America and his team is to call him and let him know. Then we get credits rolling to a scene where Bucky is recovering from his Winter Soldier days, and we get the rest of the credits rolling to a scene where Peter Parker says how he got beat up by Steve and saying his friend was huge, which I think he meant Ant-Man, because they do show him as a giant man, and shows Tony's got a new idea for Spider-Man joining the Avengers, and the first after credit scene was awesome. It was an awesome way to move forward to the Black Panther movie. And the Spider-Man scene was kind of funny, but it's cool that Spider-Man's going to be in Infinity War, I meant to say. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 9.3 out of 10. This is a great versus movie between hero and hero, unlike Batman versus Superman. Finally, I bring that up. And I'm glad that the Russos are directing Infinity War, and let's hope it's as good as this movie. And this movie has so many great shots in foreign countries, and I'm really glad that they're all going to reunite again in Infinity War. Well, it might be difficult, but we'll see how that goes. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next week I will be back with Doctor Strange. And until next time, Avengers Assemble!